Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Stackability AI. I'm your host, Austin, joined by our co-host, Mike. Today, we have a really awesome topic for the listeners out there. How's it going, Mike?
It's going good. It's going good. It's like with AI, it's like I feel like it moves so fast that you have like good days, bad days, good starts to mornings, bad starts to afternoons, and everything kind of is moving so fast. It's like you want to hold on to your hat. But
Hold on, indeed.
I think today the topic we're going to be talking about more of the regulatory aspects of this, and whether we're closing the barn door after the cows are out, so to speak. That's coming
Yeah,
from the city
indeed.
guy.
It's a really interesting topic for those of you who follow any of the really exciting regulatory aspects of this. Um, essentially, we're dealing with a situation where, like anything in tech, everyone's doing their own thing or doing nothing in some cases. You see a very fragmented landscape. If you look at um, AI as a whole, specifically what's happening right now, and who is utilizing it, who is talking about it, who is interested in it, etc. There's a lot of focus on the U.S., but there also are other countries working on different types of, AI, taking AI seriously. And what's really most interesting to me is depending upon who you are as a country and how your country is led and your government is formed and such, you're looking at AI completely different. So I think an example of that would be China. So, China is a communist state, obviously run completely different than America. There's a lot of surveillance that is part of, day-to-day life in China. And a lot of their AI focus is really on like hardware and camera surveillance and such. And when it comes to other types of I actually think that they're kind of doing it right because they know they know that if it can very much get out of hand and it can negatively impact their government, right? So they're very much aware of that. So that's China.
But I
Then
mean,
you have
Austin, you have to consider that we know that what China is doing, and we're managing. Oh, we're very good at monitoring what other people are doing. Like humans are very good at like not being self-aware, right? We can point out the things what we don't like in other people, and we can see what China's doing, and we're like, that's terrible. And like America is the best at doing that. We're the best at pointing fingers at other people who are doing the same thing that we're doing. But like right now, like this is happening here too. Like it's happening. I was just in Queens visiting family, and there's a camera every 15 100 feet on Woodhaven Boulevard. It's like a 6 mile road, and every 1500 feet there's another camera. Like you better not go more than 25 miles an hour or you're going to get a $50 ticket. So it's like we're sitting here going like, oh, look at these people, there's terrible, they're person crosses a jaywalk and they put their picture up, China's terrible, they're using AI to do this stuff. It's like, no, well, we're setting up that infrastructure. There's no more surveilled country in the world or in the city in the world than London. There's like 150 cameras per person, recording people in London. So, with that AI now, that where are we at? We're at Jason Bourne stuff where, people are following you that, oh, he was wearing a blue hat. Like, he's got a blblue hat guys there. And now we narrow it down to the 4 people wearing blue hats in the city, and then we know where you are. And oh, well, we can track your phone and we can track all this stuff. And then to have like the AI overall, like managing all that data, it's becoming even more and more powerful than it was when we were imagining it in 1996 or whatever the sci-fi movie was. The technology's past that already, right? So
yeah, for sure.
but there's no regulations to guide it.
That's kind of the difference, right? Like, you made the point about the cameras on Woodhaven Boulevard, but those cameras have been there for like, forever. That's not like a new thing. I think it comes down to 2 things. A, how the surveillance footage is being used, and like frankly, I would bet that half of those cameras don't even work. um,
You
you
haven't
know,
been there, man. I'm telling you, like my family is getting like 6 tickets a month. It's like a tax on them.
oh
Like,
yeah, okay.
so
So
they're
there's
getting they're getting like they've figured it out. It's like they're not ashamed to, like, if you drove between exit 14 and exit 18 on the throughway, and you got to one to the other, and your average speed was higher than 65 miles an hour, like, you're going to start getting a ticket. It's not, because they're surveilling so much that everything that you can think that they would be tracking, they're tracking. So, and they no longer have any culpability. It's not a person deciding this. It's not a cop. It's the machine deciding.
yeah.
Yeah.
I still think it's a different use case in America though, and the one you're making, because that is specifically for like issuing tickets. They've done what you're talking about. They've also eliminated all of the toll booths, and that's all run off of cameras, right? That take a picture of your license plate, and then if you don't have an easy pass, you're going to get a bill in the mail, sort of thing. But
But now it's even in Manhattan from 60th Street to like 59th Street. If you come
right.
down to 61st, so it's like, we're not posting the pictures and calling it a credit score, but we're keeping track of all the information that everybody else that they're keeping track of. We're just not enforcing that part of the rule yet. But I mean, it's like, isn't all of those rules were set up for public safety, and now they've just become public taxes? So the idea of like not being able to run on a red light or having red lights was originally like, oh yeah, you know what? We need to give people some time to cross the street, right? Because we have pedestrians and we have cars. And then it was like, okay, well, people are dying because they're driving too fast. So let's try and slow them down. So let's put up some limits where you could be like, okay, like here's the speed limit. And then they were like, people were driving too slow because they didn't understand that was the max speed. Okay, so let's put a minimum. So you can only drive between 40 and 65 on these roads. And if you go above 65, you're going to have to pay a tax. And if you're below 45, you're going to have to pay a tax. Like, so everything is right now, it's like a taxation state. So it's like AI is only going to help them monitor those things more efficiently at this point. I mean, where we're at right now, right? Because it's like they can now know, okay, well, we don't have to do it at 26 miles an hour. We'll give them a 9 mile an hour leeway. So it's like if they get to 36, that's abusive. Yeah, they've gone 10 miles an hour. Like, no, it has nothing to do with public safety. Nothing to do with like, show me the number of deaths lowered by like this regulation, and I'll be like, this is altruistic. But it's really just a money grab, because like
Totally.
the people are dying.
So to sum it up is I can
We're
sum this
already
up in
in
2 seconds.
we're already in China.
So, well, no, I don't think so. I disagree. In America, we use AI in this case tax people, and in China, surveillance is to surveil the state and the population, and control them. So that seems
Fundamentally
to me
different.
fundamentally different to our listeners. That's you've heard it. You've heard it here first. So,
yeah, man.
but back to the whole topic at hand here. So obviously everyone has their own interests, and trying to regulate as they can the way that they see fit. But I'm having a hard time wrapping my brain around how the whole thing works together, and like what that even looks like. In America, we have some pretty powerful tech companies, that gained a tremendous amount of power during the social media era. And I think those guys are going to be the players. And I think that ultimately, I would expect to see some sort of self-regulation imposed by Facebook, Google, OpenAI, whomever the players are at the time. just enough to keep things under control and not let the whole thing spiral.
Yeah.
And I think that's how we'll end up doing it. I'd be really shocked to see, our government step in. There is a blueprint. If you go on the whitehouse.gov website, they talk about this whole AI blueprint. And it's just very hard for me to believe, that any of this stuff would come to fruition without completely revamping, the way that we're governed. And, you have to have extremely non-biased, smart individuals to begin with. So we don't have any of those people right now. Where are they going to come from? Who's going to do this? You have to have a president that is forward thinking enough, that knows his ass from his elbow, right? And
Yeah.
like
I mean,
right now, like we don't have any of this stuff, and it's not just going to appear, unfortunately.
no, and like we were discussing, it's like they put together the president's committee on this thing, right? And it's a bunch of smart people sitting in a room looking for some leadership or something that is resembling a nuanced understanding of this stuff. And once again, just like with every industry, we don't have anybody within the government who has any knowledge of whatever's happening in that industry. So whether it's pharmaceuticals or technology, there's who's our tech guru, who's our health guru. Like the person who's in charge of our health is the least healthy looking human on the planet. And that's pretty much down the line. The least technical person in the world is in charge of technology, and it's like that person is having a conversation with Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg and Bezos and these people who are designing our future. And there's nobody even worthy of being in the room with that, having a conversation. I would put, 9 of my friends in the room that are better equipped to have a conversation with those men and then actually create something that could be useful. There's zero confidence in the ability of the government, the forward-facing government, I'll say, right? Because the backside government, the government we don't talk about in at cocktail parties is the one that developed the internet, did the code for Bitcoin, did all that stuff. So it's like the scary part about when you think about the regulations is like it's so far behind already. It's like,
yeah, and the window shrinks like daily, literally. Like it just, if you just like apply pure math to it and look at the scale at which AI is progressing and adopting compared to the scale of regulatory adoption, it's like tortoise and hare like shit, right?
yeah,
It's really just it's just absurd. But it's an interesting point. Like so here's what I think. And I always like really try and think about our old friend Web3 and decentralization and how that plays into the whole conversation here. I really thought that was going to be what we were going to be talking about a year ago, but it got completely clobbered by the AI movement. But what if Web3 and just decentralized communities is a solve for that, where you can have your own everything, your own AI governance, your own currency. That's kind of the model that I think we might need to move into.
Yeah, the back to the Stone Age.
We don't have
because it's like really like, is that what it is?
Yeah.
It becomes like a barter system and like a trust system within a smaller community. And then once the banking became a thing, right, to kind of do the expansions back in the day, like whenever banking was invented, right, it was like that became the scam, right? And it was like, okay, so now people don't need to be within their communities and they can grow beyond what they needed to do. But fundamentally, that's the way humans are, designed to be, probably, right? We can go to other communities and do other things, and everybody who's sees somebody from another community could be welcoming and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, if most of your resources are coming from, 3,000 miles away, that's not a sustainable way of life, and that's kind of what we've created in the world, is that this, okay, well, nobody knows where their food comes from anymore. Nobody knows where anything comes from anymore. And, we're the last generation that does know these things, I think, in a lot of ways, because we've seen both. We've lived in both. We know that there's people who are farmers and who grow fresh food and fresh fruit every day. And then we are also people who are city dwellers for most of our lives and know that those things are always accessible. So it's like, what's that? How do you regulate that? How do you get back to like saying like, oh, AI can't do these things versus humans can do these things? And what is human? What is AI? And like, if I'm using AI as a tool, do I write the regulations now? Does Mark, they're already writing regulations. So, is anything going to change? I don't know.
Yeah, precisely. So what does all of this really mean? Right. The purpose of this podcast isn't to be like, interpreted as however you might interpret it. Like it's not, this isn't like conspiratorial information or anything like that. Like it's real. And I think everybody needs to think about this, and it's very impactful from a business climate standpoint. Specifically smaller businesses that don't have the resources that large monopolies have. So how is this going to affect the small guy?
Well, it's going to affect everybody. And I think, that everybody needs to start to consider this as a tool and figure out how this could impact your job, your life, for good, for bad, and whatever it is. It's just like, you have to understand that this thing is coming and I need to be a little bit prepared. And I think that's what, when we talk about the idea of the podcast in terms of stackability, is stacking those skills and learning those things that you need to learn for your business, for your life, for everything. So it's not like learning it all at once. You can't. What is ChatGPT? Go find out. What is Bard? What is Charlie AI? What are these things that are happening that are going to be answering your questions? It's like, start vetting this stuff. There's a lot of stuff out there, but not all of it is good. And you'll know when you get an answer and you're like, that's not really, I kind of know enough about, okay, let me change my question. And then you change your question and you're like, that's really not the answer. But I don't know how long that firewall between that instinct is going to exist, right? Like, so, I come from a generation of skeptics, like people who not necessarily believing what anybody's telling us. It's like, I need a little bit of skin in the game before I really believe what you're saying. And I'm not saying that I haven't gotten caught up in the hype of whatever was happening at the time based on my age and my naivete, or whatever I was believing at the moment, but there was a choice, and I had access to different kinds of information. So I was able to say, okay, well, I'm a Bernie bro. I'm like into this stuff. I like the idea of these things. I like the idea of, like people having a fair shake and doing the right thing and everybody like working, and that's the very idealistic version of things. But, and, I'm that way with AI, I'm excited about the future. I'm excited about the idea that like I can, dictate something into like the ether and it's going to create amazing content. Like, I love that, I love talking and having ideas and ideating about things. So I see some good things that way, so I like to keep the idealistic idea of what AI could be, because God knows there's enough people who are, on the other side of it, who are not,
there's
all the movies we watch.
There's a few. So yeah, step one, use these tools, and they're all free, right? So there's really no excuse for anybody to use them. I have an interesting story that happened to me the other day. I was having a meeting with my financial advisor, and we used this Zoom assistant read AI that transcripts, the conversation. And so I had it on. It was running. Completely didn't even think about it, and it ended up sending him the meeting notes afterwards, and it like completely blew his mind. Um, and it's like, so now I'm entering into conversations with him, as a prospective client, and hopefully we doing some strategy work for him and all of this stuff. But it only took that one experience, right? So uh, the
That's a great story. That's a great
yeah,
story because it's really what it is. It's like, people don't even know, even me, I'm learning every day about the new tools that are available. And, I have been in tech software for 25 years and I still every day it's like changing.
yeah,
So that's a great thing. And we've talked about how these, that gets us into like privacy more. It's like, okay, so like, did that guy know he was being recorded? And then, like it's also a slippery slope that way too. It's like, so you're on a, now I would assume, Zoom lets you know you're being recorded right now or whatever. But there are these devices now that I could wear a necklace that looks beautiful or sunglasses that look great, and everybody around me is being recorded. So how do you regulate that? How do you all of a
yeah,
sudden?
yeah. Well, you're not going to, and that's not something that's new. I mean, companies been harvesting your data since day one. So unfortunately, I don't think there's anything you can do about that. Um, but again, we hit on this in a previous episode. You should definitely put terms and conditions into ChatGPT and have them summarize it so you know what you're reading.
Right.
So that's like a good little hack. So you've used some of these tools, you've understood some of the basics. Hopefully that will pique your interest enough, where you can find reputable experts to talk about this stuff and self-educate yourself. I mean, there's tons of. The good thing is, honestly, is that there's so much knowledge out there, and if you have the time, you should dive deep. So next would be setting of clear objectives. It's like, okay, I have an idea of what this can do. Next, I'd probably identify real use cases and try to implement them. Right.
Right.
At that point, you could lean on any sort of experts, consultancies, if you desire. Hell, just go on YouTube and pick a bunch of really good content that you think is engaging, that's speaking to you.
So I've had a couple of use cases this week in terms of like trying to figure out a technical problem that I
Nice. What are they?
that I couldn't quite get to. So I reached an impasse in some communicatable abilities of a couple of databases, right? So I'm like, managing a couple of different a couple of different companies that have Salesforce and this and that and this and that, and it's like all these different parts that I want to be able to talk to each other. So I've started like trying to figure it out on my own and using different tools to try and have them communicate with each other. But when I hit an impasse, I've found a blockage in the AI models where it's like if you're using words that are commonly used. So I have multiple email addresses for contacts that I want all to migrate, equally or be treated as the main email and create new contacts or whatever. It's like it can't figure out the nuances of the language. It cannot understand that there are multiple possible variables based on a contact, right? So it's like Austin Cornelio has 5 different email addresses and 4 phone numbers. And I want all of those things to be created into this particular product. And whether I Google it or I try and find it, it's like because all the words are so commonly used in SEO, it's like contact, number, this, that trying to find a technical solution to a problem is becoming a challenge, right? So it's like I used to be able to Google something that a problem I was trying to solve, and there wouldn't be that much noise in the way. Now it's gotten to a point where everybody's so hyper SEO, so hyper this, so hyper that it's like I can't find anything with any specificity. It's hard to find things that are a little bit beyond the basic. So
Well,
yeah.
this whole thing that you're speaking of is going to get compounded big time just with the ease of creating low quality content. Right. So it used to take whatever. Now it's going to take a fraction of that time, and it's going to be everywhere. So another very important point, when you do decide to go out and create your own content, like make it your own, now I think it's going to be even more valuable to have really good quality content, because you're going to get dinged for just using crap that ChatGPT spits out, right?
It's just going to be like free range eggs. You know what I mean? It's like you're going to have a category of people who only want like things made by real humans. It's like you're going to have to, it's like, I want a free range, grass fed fucking turkey, like, okay, you can get it. You know what I mean? It's going to be like that. You're going to be able to like, I don't want content created by turkeys. And there's going to be a category for it. AI content only, but created by turkeys.
It's possible.
It's going to be a category. I'm predicting.
So how did you end up? Where did you end up with your problem that you're trying to solve?
I have to talk to a human. I have to go to a consultant company and have somebody sit on a Zoom call with me while I do what they tell me to do. That's good. Where we're at, and nice. I'm fine with it. That's good. Like because with this company, there's other companies, the way they do it, they have these different business models, which is interesting. Also, it's like they're all trying to get you for 10 hours, and if I was not technical, I'd be like, okay, yeah, I probably need 10 hours. But this one company was like, okay, well, I'll give you 75 minutes for $250. And I'm like, I'm betting against the time. It's like, if it takes me 4 of those and I lose 6 hours, okay. You know what I mean? Like, but I'm going to have every one of these things set up and I just need the tweaks. You know what I mean? You could probably do it for me. Actually, you'd probably figure it out faster than they would. That's why I'm not implementing you enough.
Yeah. Well, I'm always here for you, buddy. So just let me know.
Yeah.
Back to the regulatory aspect and, how this is, what's this going to mean for small businesses? I don't know. It's hard to tell. I think now the more knowledge you have, the better. Just be aware. I think there's going to have to be a lot of real-time decision making. I still think that, there's some sort of, moving outside the matrix sort of concept that is always at play in my mind here, where, groups of individuals band together to do things in a cohesive way, to benefit the good of, wherever the sector is, industry, etc. And I think if people do that, companies do that, there's some small wins, those wins will turn into medium wins and etc. Right. So I think that there's a lot of spearheading opportunities right now, which I'm personally really excited about. I mean, to me, that's one of the biggest things that gets me excited about everything that's happening right now is just the opportunities are just ample.
Well, I think that you're 100% right, and it probably took you longer to say that sentence than it will be to change entire industries. Because when you look at the way that the video rendering, I saw a video of a single person shooter game yesterday. It was real time. It was like you were sitting there like actually shooting people. It's like, like, why is this what we're using this power for?
Yeah, and I don't get it. Like, I respect gamers and I know that video games are super fun and everything, but it's like
Why are we
It's
doing?
just like, why do you need to make that game? I guess like of all the games you're gonna make, like I guess I can never really understand it, but that's a topic for another time, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely a topic for another time because it's it's cultural. Like growing up in the '80s, people were worried about the violence and they're like, oh, there's so much violence, but they were definitely more concerned about whether or not I saw a nipple on television than whether or not I saw somebody getting 80 people getting murdered. And then
Yeah,
it's like,
it's so true.
and if you're at all self-aware, you understand about like desensitizing things. It's like, yeah, it's like you stick your hand on something and it's hot and it feels really hot the first time, and then the second time and the third time, but the 100th time it's not hot anymore, and your hand has a callus to you fight against the heat, and your hand is you've been dealing with these hard things and everything hardens over time, and I think that the problem with the machine is that they don't take that humanity into consideration, and the problem with the corporate stuff is that they don't either. They're looking for profits, and the machine doesn't know what it's looking for. It's only knowing what the programmer told it to look for. So now we have to like figure out the how to regulate all of this before the bad guys win. I mean, really.
Yeah, because that's what everyone talks about is there's all these amazing benefits, but it only takes a few bad actors. So it's how do you stop that? But who knows? Like we'll find out because it will happen, and hopefully
In three,
it will
two,
be
one, and
catastrophic, right?
mic drop. Oh my
Yeah.
god.
So, I think that wraps it for this episode. We could go on forever, but I think we'll do follow-ups here. This is an ever-changing landscape, and one of the kind of the cool things about producing this body of work is you're going to be able to go back on it and traverse through the timeline of the episodes and the content that we create, and it's going to be vastly different over short amounts of time. So
Yeah.
should be pretty interesting. All right, everybody. Well, thanks again for listening. Until next time, have a great day. Bye.